Okay. All right. So I'll show you now how where I go and how to actually grab these fonts, how to find them. If you need web fonts, you can use Typekit, which is built into Creative Cloud. So if you have your own Creative Cloud version, you can go to the Typekit website, typekit.com, log into your Adobe account, and find fonts in here. You can search. Here you can see there's like 8. They have 8 different families or styles of fonts. The sans serif, serif, slab serif is kind of a new one. It's a hybrid between serif and sans serif. Script, black letter. Black letter is the like Gothic calligraphy looking stuff. Monospace fonts, if you remember from when we were setting up Atom, monospace fonts, every letter and character takes up the exact same height and width. So you write on a grid, essentially. Okay, whereas other fonts, the letters are different widths, like the W is wider than the O, kind of a thing. Those grids don't line up, right? Monospace fonts do, and there's times when you want to use them. Use them with code because it's easier to scan, to make sure, like in HTML, to make sure everything's lining up correctly. Nesting, it's much easier for code. Handwriting fonts, decorative fonts. There was a way to search. Oh, okay. I thought there was a way to search for web, because they don't always have. Anyway. All right, I'm going to sort by sans serif. So I'm just going to grab sans serif fonts and kind of look through and be like, oh, I don't know. Next page. You just kind of find one you like. You can put whatever in here too. So if there's specific letters that you're kind of looking for, actually I kind of like this one. I'm thinking about it too much. All right. So if I click on this one, the links or the what should I say? The icon that you're looking for are these angle brackets, right? The angle brackets mean that it can be synced or used as a web font. Okay. If it has the little cloud icon with the arrow, that means you can also download it and use it as a desktop font. Okay, so you can use it in Illustrator and Photoshop. If it's a web font, then you can only use it as a web font. If you are using Typekit and you want to use a web font, you need to do this web use add to kit. Typekit, what it does is it packages these groups of fonts that are tied to your account. And so you generally are paying for a license for how many you can use. All right, it's a pain. Doesn't always work right. I don't recommend using Typekit, but I'm going to show you how to use it. So you would click on use the kit. So you need to build a new kit. I'm going to create a new kit and just call this, Dig Fow Type. I don't know why. I'm not putting. We'll just do localhost since since our website doesn't exist anywhere outside of our machine, our laptop. You just write in localhost. Hit continue. This is what you're loading. Now the reason I don't like this is because it's not a link to an actual file. It's JavaScript that runs on your page. Which JavaScript is, it's a little script, it's a little program, which increases your load time on your page more than CSS would. It doesn't matter too much for us here because we have a super fast network, when it works, which is most of the time now. But you got to think about people that are on your edge cases, people in rural areas, people that have caps on their data plans on their phones, who just have slow internet, like my grandparents. For whatever reason, they have slow internet, right? Decrease your load times as much as possible. Make it as efficient as possible. But you would just copy this and then stick this in the head of your file before your link for loading your CSS. So I would copy it and then come over here, stick it. So I've got my Google font. Put my script in here. I really hate doing scripts. All right. So my script to load that font, what was it called? Yeah, there's the actual script. What was the name of this font? I don't even remember anymore. Oh, Azo Sans. Oh, okay, it was telling me. So then I can come over here now and change this to Azo Sans. Come back to my page. Oh, that's the actual page. Let's just open this in the browser. So that's a little different. So here's it with Open Sans. Here's it with Azo Sans. So you can see the change, right? Everybody sees that? All right, so that's just how you would load that font. I'm pretty sure it's loading. Let's inspect it to make sure. See if we get, oh, we're getting an error. See, yeah, it failed to load it. Oh God. All right. See, this is why I don't like Typekit. I recommend you don't use Typekit. A good place to go is just Google Fonts. Google Fonts is really nice. It has the same sorts of filter options for you. So here's Open Sans, Roboto, pretty common, Lotto, pretty common. Let's try Railway. So I want to pick Railway. You hit your plus. It adds it down here. The family selected. You click on that that little menu drop up. I want to embed it. Do your standard embed. Do not do an at import. All right, at import is just an old way of importing stuff. Again, load times. Your CSS, the link to the CSS for this is much faster. To the actual file is much faster. Okay. If you want to download the font and put it local or have it locally, you can download it, and then you can find that font. So I've got it here, and just add it to your file. Or add it to your project. So let's see, where are we at? So here's where my file lives. I'm going to make a new folder and call it fonts. It's my website. Put Railway in there. Here's all the different fonts for Railway. And then you can load whichever ones you want and use them the way you want. This is a good backup, but I don't recommend it necessarily. The easiest way is going to be to just grab this link, drop that in here. Let's get rid of this Typekit mess. Drop that link in there and then come over here and change the name of the font family you're loading. There we go. No errors, loads super fast. A note on the inspector. I know we haven't talked too much about it, and this is the one in Safari. But if you're, load it real quick. If you have the inspector up and then you load it, it tells you how long it takes to load the page. Like in this bar right here, this middle bar in the top. It's showing you how many files you're loading or how many resources, okay? Some pages, CSS files, fonts. Shows you how much all of that, the total size of your website is. This is tiny, 7.35 kilobytes. And then how many seconds? It took 112 milliseconds. So super fast, right? Does that make sense? It took 1/10 of a second. And this is in Safari. In Chrome, let's grab, oh good. What? How did you do that? All right, let's inspect it. Reload the page. So in Chrome, I'm not sure where it shows. Is it under network? This says it took 58 milliseconds. Oh yeah, right here. So under timeline or under network, sorry. So it finished the load in 77 milliseconds. That's a local load. That's super, again, super fast. So Chrome loaded it a little faster. Let's see what Firefox does. When you're dealing with big websites, like, actually, let's go JMC. So you have to have it open first. So this is a pretty big website. It loaded. It took almost 2 seconds to load, which is a little too long. But it only loaded 2.1 megabytes, which is not bad. Most of that are the images for the slideshow, which I still made pretty small. So, you know, it's not terrible, but it's not super fast by any means. How long is that page? Like, that page took half a second. 1/10 of a second. Almost a second. 3/4 of a second. So, you know, this is just a good way to test your pages to see how fast they go. I recommend doing that with the ones you're working on, because you guys are including more. No, it's my console. File. Yep, not that one. Back over here. Huh, I haven't done this in forever. I don't remember how to get it down to the other side, to the bottom. But anyway, so here's a timeline. Can reload the page. I've got it, but how long did it take? That's not helpful. It's all the way over there. Let's pull it out. There we go. The things, okay, so it loaded all of that. How long did HTML take? I've not messed with this one yet. It's not as clear. The CSS is what's taking forever. Yeah, I don't know. On this one, it's not as clear. I'm gonna have to look up like how to parse this. This can do all, and then there's no images. Yeah. Let's see what it does for JMC. Probably about as slow. Wow, it took 5 seconds for Firefox Developer Edition to load the page. So Chrome was definitely faster. I don't know what the issue was. Anyway, so that's you know, every browser handles things differently, and you need to be really aware of those when you're picking your fonts. So don't pick a ton of fonts, okay? Don't pick a lot of weights. Try to decide what you think is gonna work best. Where are we at? What is gonna look best? Generally, I would recommend 2 fonts at most. Okay. Usually, what I do is 1 font with different weights because it stays consistent. Okay. You don't want your font to detract from your site. All right. You don't want your font to be a graphic. Essentially, you're not looking at it to be a graphic. It needs to communicate because you're using it to make your words look a certain way. Right. People need to be able to read them. Right. You don't want to have words and not be able to read them. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? All right. Okay, so I'm going to shoot this back to Open Sans. All right. So again, if you want to add different fonts, like I could do Railway as my backup, and it will load Open Sans first. So if we come back here, so there's Open Sans. But if I take out my link to Open Sans, so if I just comment this part out, so it can't actually load the file. Oh, still loading it. Interesting. it knows where the font is, apparently. I must have it installed on my system. Nope, it's not looking at it, but it's definitely still loading it. Yeah, huh, interesting. Okay, I must have it installed on my computer. But that's a way to test it. It would default to Railway, to whatever your second or third fonts are. It just goes down through the list. So, all right, let's talk a little. Everybody's clear about how to use fonts then? Yeah? All right, then we need to talk about media queries. And what a media query is it's how do I change like spacing specifically, or font sizes, when people are looking at it on like a mobile browser, a tablet or a phone, especially like when we get to tiny phones. How do I change how things look when we do this? There's a couple things we need to do. Most of it is in the CSS, but in your HTML you want to include this meta tag here. This meta tag is a viewport tag, and it sets what the scale is for the page. It's noticeable most on actual devices, not really in the responsive emulators, the little mobile emulators that we have. So when you go into responsive design mode, having this tag or not having this tag isn't going to matter because it automatically figures it out. But if you were to look at the same page on your phone, it wouldn't. What it means is that it's telling the viewport scale to always be 100%. Okay. Why this matters is if you've ever gone to a website on your phone and it doesn't actually like change for a mobile site, it looks like you've just zoomed way out on a regular site. You guys ever done that? You've gone to I don't know, some website and it looks really tiny, like it looks like you've just really zoomed out on what the normal site would look like on your phone. That's because they don't have this meta tag, and they're literally changing the zoom level of your of the browser window. All right, so what they're doing is they're going like, so if I were to go to my browser and just start, let me pick a different page, just start zooming out like that, or zooming in. What they're doing is just zooming way out so they can fit the entire page within that little browser window dimension, that 400 or 500 pixels. Does that make sense to everybody? That's why it looks that way. So what you have to do is you have to tell the browser to always be 100%. And you do that with this meta tag. So what you're saying is this first part is what am I accessing? What part of the browser am I accessing? The viewport. So that's the window that all the content shows up in. It's the VW in those viewport units that we use. And then what am I doing? What content am I accessing, or what setting am I setting essentially for the viewport? I'm setting the initial scale always needs to be 1.0, which is 100%. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? What this is doing? Meg? Sorta? It's telling the browser to always be at its normal zoom level, 100%. Okay. All right. So why this matters is because then we can do things. Oh, I guess I don't have any media queries. Then we can do some things with media queries, which is a way in the CSS to also talk to the browser, to tell the browser to do specific things. So when you write CSS, it by default just sets all of your characteristics for your elements at any dimension for the browser window. Okay, the browser window could be 10,000 pixels wide or 100 pixels wide, and these rules are always going to they're going to be the rules that the browser uses to style the page at both of those dimensions. Now, obviously, that's not good because you have a lot less space between 10,000 pixels and 100 pixels. So there are times when you need to design, and you should design specifically for those small windows. You need to change your spacings, or your font sizes, or your anything. I mean, there's just all sorts of stuff you can do specifically at those sizes. Okay. So if we look at, where are we at? All right, if we look at this page, this is what my page looks like at 320 pixels wide. It's not terrible. It could be better. It's readable. There's maybe a little too much space on the sides. Maybe don't need to indent at this dimension because that leaves all this weirdness going on here. So these are things that I could change, and probably should change. I could probably make this a little smaller, just whatever. So to do that, we come to the very bottom of our CSS, and really media queries can go anywhere. They don't need to be at the bottom. I put them at the bottom. I put them after all the regular CSS rules. A media query is just the @ plus media, and then you have a setting that you set. Yeah, sorry. You have a thing that you access or a setting that you access that's in parentheses. So I'm going to set the max width for everything that's going to be inside these square brackets, and we're going to set it at I'll set it at 300 pixels. I'm not sure if I wrote that media query correctly. Hold on. I always have to double check it because I always forget. So a media query is a query, which is a question of the media. We're asking the media a question. The media is the inner browser, okay, the thing that is showing our content. Sorry, I'm just double checking that I wrote it correctly. I did. Oh, weird. I'm just wondering why it didn't change colors. Okay. I don't know. All right, so what we're doing is saying, hey, media, for everything below 300, so once you've hit 300 pixels, disregard this, so the max width of 300 pixels, everything inside here you should use, okay? What you can do is you can rewrite or you can overwrite rules that you've set up here. So anything that you've set here, you just set a new setting, and for anything under 300 pixels and below, it'll take effect. Actually, I might change it to go to 600. Or you can write completely new rules. You can make completely new declaration blocks for your elements, for your targets, okay, for your selectors. So let's kind of look at the page. What I do is I start at the top of my page in my browser, and I say, all right, what needs to be a little different? Maybe I don't need so much spacing right here, right? So I inspect, I pop it over to the right, and I come and I say, okay, where is that spacing? Well, that spacing is on my H3 inside of my section 1, and it has some margin that is default margin. It's the user agent style sheet right here. So I'm going to add, I'm probably going to just set margin top to be something less. So we'll come down to the media query. We'll find that H3, which is right here. So then I'll say ID1. I'm going to be specific about it. Section ID1, H3, margin top, 0.5 rem, I guess. We'll use rems. 0.5 rems. We've talked about rems, right? Do you guys remember? No? Okay. When we talked about margin and padding, we talked about different units to use for that margin and padding. You generally want to use relative units, and the three main relative units you want to use are percentages, which always refer to the parent, the immediate parent, and then viewport width or viewport height, which is relative to the height or width of the browser window. Okay. Spacing is good to do. You can use rems, which are a font unit. So for setting the size of fonts. You don't set pixels or points, you set ems or rems. And what they refer to are the rem refers to the root element, so the HTML tag, and it's whatever the default font size is for the HTML tag, which the browser usually sets at 16 pixels. Okay, but you can always overwrite that by setting it up here. I could say font size and be 20 pixels, and now the default font size for my page is 20 pixels. Okay, it's just whatever you want it to be. I always just use the standard 16. It's good practice to sometimes just also put that in your file if your spacing depends on it. The reason why root rem, the root element, is important is what's half of 16? Okay, so this 0.5 rem is 8 pixels of space. That's the way to think about it. So it's always in units of whatever that root element font would be. I would use rems are different than ems. Ems are the same thing. They're a font measurement, but they refer to the font of the parent element. Okay, so this section ID 1H3, if I have a different font size set for section 1, half of that, and then say it's 20 pixels for section 1, then 0.5 ems would be 10 pixels and not 8 pixels. So to avoid confusion, I usually just stick with rems. So I know what that is, and it's just standard across the website. All right. You can do things like viewport width, but 0.5% of your viewport width is a really weird spacing. And if we look at it, okay, that's not terrible. But as I do this, let's see. Actually, that wasn't bad at all. It's super tiny. So what's giving me space? Oh, there's some padding too. And more padding. All right, so this adds padding on the top. Yep. Oh, ems. Yeah, I did ems here. So that is, let me take off all the padding here. Okay, all that padding is off. Okay, so that little sliver of margin right there is how much space is actually applying right there. And it's just using viewport width for your margin on the top is not a great idea. It's hard to know exactly how much space it's going to be. So I usually just use rems. That gives me more space. Okay. Probably have too much space here, so I could figure out what's causing all that space. Looks like it's this padding bottom on the section. So bottom, here we go, padding bottom. So I would come in and then say, okay, section 1, padding bottom 0. And then that takes away that space. Okay. But that space will come back as we get bigger. Oh, no. Actually, let me target the whole thing so you can kind of see what it's going to do. All right, so you see there's no padding on it right now. All right, it's not. But as we get above 600, the padding comes back. So there's the padding. Does that make sense? That's what the media query is doing. It's setting up like a conditional statement. It's saying if your width is 600 or below, use these new rules. If your width is 600 or above, use the default rules, the default CSS. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, Maggie? Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if you were lost in thought or just zoning. A little bit of both. It's okay. All right. Let's go back down to this size.
So do we have to make sure that our website is viewable on all of those?
Not all of these, but definitely in the iPhone SE.
How did you get that?
So this is Safari specifically, but it's the responsive design mode, which is Option Command R.
How did you do a develop tab?
Ah, okay, yeah. If you don't see your Develop tab, then you need to come to Preferences. You need to go to Advanced, and then it's down here at the bottom. And that's how you would then get your inspector, too. If you're in Safari, yeah. If you're in Firefox,
oh, go ahead.
So in Safari you get this nice view like this. Chrome, you get something similar. You can open up your inspector and see it, but also it's Command Shift M, which is called the device mode. Let me move this over. And then you can pick from a drop down of different devices.
Is there nothing in Firefox?
No, Firefox has it. You're in regular Firefox?
Yeah.
Quit Developer Edition here. Man, Developer Edition runs so slow anymore. Oh, okay, well. All right, inspector. Oh, one password, sorry. Inspect elements. Oh, okay, so it's giving me the same kind of inspector. Is it not? Oh, interesting. Nope, that just puts it on the side. That pops it out. I haven't used this one in a while. Tools, web. Oh, okay, tools, web developer, and then responsive design mode. It is also Command Option M.
Command Option
M. And then this gives you different. It doesn't tell you what device it is, but it gives you the different resolutions.
Oh, do you know how do you do Chrome again?
Chrome is. You can right click on it.
What's the dimension of the one that we need, the iPhone?
320. 320 by 568 is an iPhone 5.
How do you do 560? This is.
If you have it, I want you to do the smallest iPhone out there. So you just right click on it and go to inspect.
For Firefox, the option is 320 by 480.
That's fine. You can, and for Firefox, you can put in a dimension too.
Chrome, it was.
Right click and then Command Shift M. Command Option M, sorry. Or wait, no, Command Shift M. Yeah.
I don't get it.
You can also Google that. Like, it's different. You don't get it? No? Go to inspect. Just right click and go to inspect. Okay. And then there's this little device option here. This little icon. Click on that. It should be Command Shift M, but I think you have to have your inspector open before you hit Command Shift M.
Okay. Do you have to have that @media thing in your?
Yeah, I want media queries in your CSS. That's what we're working on now. Because this is how you change the rules for when the dimensions get really small. Okay. So we'll do it here. There's a box over here. And then iPhone 5. If it says something else, you can put in a custom dimension. So, 375 by 568, whatever. I don't know what it was. What was the iPhone 5? 320 by 568. So just come into responsive and then put in whatever dimension you want.
I have a question.
Yep.
How would you center pictures? Is that something you have to do within your style, or is that something you?
That's in the CSS. That's in your style sheet. It depends on the box that you have them in, the container, because that's what you would actually be centering. So, actually, I do have homework for you guys today that will answer your question. I don't want to get into it right now because I still have stuff to cover for this. All right. Okay, so those are the three different browsers. I mean, you can use any one of those browsers. It's more or less the same. They're all working off the same basic framework, same basic technology. But really, what you need to do is have this inspector open. This is where you should go to debug problems to figure out what's something's not showing up correctly. You go here. If you have errors, they're going to show up as like little flags. They'll be like, I had that error over here that was like I think over here. Yeah, so there's something wrong. There's 5 errors on the department website. I think it has to do with, some stuff I just haven't taken off yet that it's trying to load. I haven't deleted the instances that are calling for that. No errors here. It's Chrome, Firefox. They're all pretty much the same. They may not look exactly the same, but they're all pretty much the same. You can add, like for Firefox, you can add another preset. So you could go 320 by 568. That's going to give you, oh, why did it call that? I just want to add. Oh, I see. 320 by 568. There we go. That would be my iPhone 5 preset. There, custom. Anyway, all right. So I'm going to close these now and just have Safari open. But things I'm going to do is like get rid of if I have indentation or anything like that, or maybe even like we can talk about images if you want. That totally changed. Weird. I guess I was doing something and never finished it. Awesome. All right. Well, that's good to know that that link is broken. That's really gross. We're going to take that indentation out. Oh, yeah. Okay, I see what I did. I'm gonna have to rewrite that whole thing. I did this a long time ago when the way you had to do that sort of indentation was very different. It's handled a lot differently now. An ordered list has padding. Huh, that's weird that the padding isn't showing up. It's telling me I have padding, but it's not letting me access it. There's that padding. And then, Oh, I see. Anyway, all right. So I have to. Yeah, that stuff's not going to be easy to fix. Okay, so we talked about typography. We've talked about media queries. Do you guys understand when, like, how to use the media queries then? Like, why we're using them? Is this a no? The collective silence is a no. Okay. So again, the media query is setting. It's I like crickets. The media query is just it's a conditional statement, okay, and that means that it depends on a certain condition being met. All right, it's depending on the browser window being 600 pixels or less, because I'm using max width. So saying that the max width of 600 pixels, then all the rules that are inside of the curly brackets for this media query should take place. So everything 600 pixels and below, right? It's setting a ceiling, the absolute limit for width, that these rules take precedence over the other rules, right? You don't have to rewrite every single rule because it will still apply all these default rules to your page. You're just rewriting the ones that you want to change for that dimension. Does that make sense? So it's like extra rules that only take effect under certain conditions. And those conditions being tiny browser windows.
Do you have to make it for every single section, or can you just do a collective?
You can do a collective one.
So
just put on your CSS. Are you making a CSS page for every different page? Or what do you mean?
No, like instead of saying like #1, could you do like, I don't know, hashtag whatever.
If your spacing problems are consistent, yeah, if your spacing problems are consistent. But be really careful doing that, because it might mess up stuff that it has different spacing. Like if you notice that it's the same kind of spacing or the same sort of thing is happening to multiple elements in the different sections, then yeah, by all means, set it generally for whatever the default. You could all sections, margin top, half a rem, right? Instead of just section 1, H3. Or you could just set like all H3s, margin top, half a rem, right? So every H3 on my page now would have 8 pixels of margin at the top. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But just be careful doing that. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
How do you make like 2 columns of text look good?
Any questions about media queries?
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
No.
Okay. No? All right. So we need to talk a little bit then about, and this is going to get into our homework, and then I'll let you guys work on it. Okay. And I want you to actually just do this little bit of homework first before you do anything else. We need to talk about like spacing things and how to move multiple elements around and how to arrange them correctly. In the past, this used to be really difficult. You had to do stuff with floats and lists and crazy padding and position to get stuff to line up horizontally or move around correctly. I think I talked a little bit about Flexbox, setting display flex before break, but I'm sure everyone has forgotten. Luckily, we have this thing called Flexbox Froggy, which are 24 little exercises for you to go through that will teach you about Flexbox. What Flexbox is a new framework for CSS3 that makes it really easy to arrange and position elements on the page relative to each other, as long as you understand what's happening with them. I know I talked about it, I think the Thursday before break. So there is a video that covers it.
Is this what you were really excited about?
Huh?
Is this what you were really excited
Yeah.
about?
Well, partly. I don't know. There's a lot about CSS that I get really excited about.
The
So.
thing that like just came out and you were like, I'm so excited to do this. No, that's
What was what?
the next.
Oh, that was the XD. Yeah, that was the next thing that we're doing once we get this page done.
You're just mildly excited about this.
No, I love Flexbox. Flexbox makes my life so much easier. But I have lots of old sites that don't use Flexbox that I need to go back and fix and make them use Flexbox. The thing with Flexbox is to just think about grouping like you do with Photoshop. Okay, you're grouping elements together into components, and then you're grouping those components together, and then they need to be siblings, and they have parents, and you arrange them in these little family groups. This Flexbox Froggy homework, which I want you to start today in class and go through it until you finish it, is going to teach you better than I can about Flexbox. Like I can go through here and tell you everything that's in here and how to do it, but this is going to show you, this is going to make it muscle memory for you. And then Flexbox is how we would arrange 2 columns of text side by side and make them look good, or multiple images side by side and make them look good, and make it responsive so that it can change according to the browser dimensions. To get to it, just check out the website or the page, the description for the assignment, and then it's down here at the bottom of the tools section, the orange section. All right, it's just called Flexbox Froggy. Go there, do that. I'll make a little homework assignment for it. What I want you to do is submit, when you get to level 24, once you finish this part, it will give you a yay, you've completed everything screen. Take a screenshot and submit that. All right, does that make sense? Okay, so again, to find it, it's under the tools section, it's the very last thing. Do it. I'll put the link in the, I'll actually just make it a website and put the link on there. That's what I want you guys to work on now, okay, until the end of class. And if you don't have it done by the end of class, that's your homework for Thursday. All right, in addition to adding media queries and finding some type to put on your page. Thursday, I want to be done with this little section, this little bit of the assignment, so we can move on to XD and add pages and play around a little faster. Cool? Everybody's good? Okay, any questions about this? Any questions in general? Yeah.
When would be a good time for, are you gonna be able to like help us troubleshoot our websites?
Yeah.
now? Like right now, or should we do that like?
Yeah, in a second. I'd rather you do Flexbox. Let's do that on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll make this portion so that the actual like coding the website portion due at the end of class on Thursday. So Thursday can be troubleshooting.
What if we have like questions?
Yeah, that'll be Thursday in class.
What if
Or
the answers to our questions require more time than we have?
Yeah.
We can do it. We can do a little bit today, but let me start working on Flexbox Froggy. Let me get this done, and then we'll make it. We'll do that. I'll come around and answer your questions. All right, so Flexbox Froggy is now.